Survival in the Wild West was not just a matter of courage, but also of humanity. In the summer of 1868, Tom Jeffords was involved in one of the most unusual encounters that might never have made it into history books if it hadn't forever changed the relationship between settlers and Comanches. His decision on a rainy night brought the wrath of 70 Comanche warriors upon him, as he faced certain death with a single rifle barrel. But this isn't the story you've heard before. The Texas frontier in 1868 was nothing but a lawless land of chaos, where people's lives were determined by two things: fear and survival instinct. Tom Jeffords, however, was a different man. As a frontier trader, he learned that survival sometimes required more than good shooting skills. He lived as a lone farmer on the edge of Llano Estacado, where he often encountered Indians, including the dreaded Comanches. Tom arrived in the Western Territories young, barely 20 years old. Following his father's advice to always seek areas with few people and many opportunities, he settled on the frontier. Through hard work, he built himself a spacious log house near the Pecos River. He was known in the area as one of those rare settlers who could treat natives with respect. He spoke Navajo and had a basic understanding of Comanche and Apache dialects. That particular July night was no different from any other. A storm was brewing in the air, distant thunder signaled approaching rain. Tom was preparing dinner when there was a knock on his window. At first, he thought it was one of his neighbors, although the nearest settler's house was a good hour's ride away. Opening the door, he found a young Comanche girl who was severely injured. The girl could hardly have been 16, with an arrow wound gaping in her shoulder, her face pale from blood loss. Her clothing suggested she was from the more distinguished Comanches, made of fine leather with richly decorated patterns. Surprisingly, he asked for help in broken English. He knelt before him pleading. Blood had already soaked through his clothes, his body trembling from pain and fear. "Help, please. They're chasing me." In the Wild West, it was an unwritten rule that white men did not interfere in Indian affairs. This was especially true for the Comanche, who were known as the most fearsome warriors of the prairie. They were also called the Wolves of the Prairie, referring to their terrifying mounted combat skills. Texas settlers' nightmares were often haunted by Comanche warriors galloping in the moonlight, showing no mercy to white intruders. Yet Tom didn't hesitate. He invited the girl in and treated her wounds. Over the years, he had learned basic medical knowledge, as doctors were rarely nearby in the frontier. He removed the arrowhead, cleaned the wound with sage brew, then bandaged it with clean linen. Meanwhile, the girl occasionally lost consciousness from the pain. The girl, who called herself Daughter of Sunset after regaining some strength, told him she was fleeing from her own tribe. Her father, Chief Red Feather, the most feared Comanche leader, wanted to force her into marriage with an elderly warrior chief to strengthen the alliance between two tribes, but she fled because her heart already belonged to a young warrior. "White man, if they find me here, we'll both die. But I have nowhere to go. My father has mobilized the entire tribe against me." Tom gave his bed to the girl, while he made himself a bed on the floor. During the night, he got up twice to check on Daughter of Sunset's condition, who was tossing and turning with fever. At dawn, the girl's condition improved, but Tom knew the wound could become infected if not treated properly. He took a bottle of whiskey from the pantry, disinfected the wound again, and applied fresh bandages. Meanwhile, the girl talked about her tribe, traditions, and how difficult it was to live between two worlds. "My father respects the old ways, but he also understands the white man's world. That's what makes him dangerous. He knows how you white people think, but his heart follows Comanche laws." Tom didn't know what to believe, but the fear in the girl's eyes convinced him. He decided to give her shelter until she regained her strength. He had no idea that this decision would put his life at risk. The story takes a turn now, because what Tom didn't know was that Daughter of Sunset hadn't told him everything. Her father, Red Feather, was the most influential Comanche chief who was looking for the man who had sold weapons to their enemies, the Kiowas, years ago. And this man bore a striking resemblance to Tom. The warfare between the Comanches and Kiowas went back decades. Although both tribes were nomadic peoples of the Great Plains, they were in constant conflict over hunting grounds and horses. In recent years, the situation had worsened as white settlers increasingly pushed the tribes into smaller areas, and the fight for survival became bloodier. During the day, Tom took care of tasks around the house but constantly watched the prairie for approaching riders. Meanwhile, Daughter of Sunset slowly recovered. She told him that her mother was a white woman who had been captured by the Comanches during a raid, but later Red Feather married her. From her, she learned English and the ways of white people. They say because of my mother, my father became more understanding of white people. But deep in his heart, he never fully trusted them. Especially not after they killed my brother. The next dawn, Tom woke at his usual time, but as he stepped onto the veranda, his blood froze. In the light of the rising sun, he saw 70 Comanche warriors arranged in a semicircle around his house, all armed, their faces decorated with war paint. They sat silently on their horses like angels of death. In the middle, on his black war horse, sat Chief Red Feather, holding a tomahawk. He was a tall, dignified figure, with the mark of chieftainship on his forehead, his face covered in battle scars. His gaze was more penetrating than a coyote's in the night. Tom knew he had no chance against so many warriors. He slowly stepped back into the house, grabbed his rifle, and prepared for the worst. His Winchester repeating rifle was an excellent weapon, but it was still hopeless against 70 warriors. He at least wanted to sell his life dearly. Daughter of Sunset also woke up to the noise, and when she saw her father, she turned pale. How did they find us so quickly? This is impossible. Tom's features hardened. I didn't want to believe you, but you spoke the truth. Your entire tribe is surrounding my house. What the devil have I done? Now, before we continue this captivating story, don't forget that on our channel you can find new, exciting Western stories every week that are rooted in reality yet bring to life the wild and harsh world of the frontier. If you love authentic Western stories, follow our channel. Returning to Tom Jeffords' situation, the tension was palpable in the air. Chief Red Feather dismounted his horse and stepped to the door. Behind him stood 3 warriors with bows in their hands. The chief wore ceremonial dress, richly decorated with feathers, bones, and colored beads, indicating his high rank. On his chest hung a necklace made of bear claws, showing that he dared to face not only men but also the most fearsome beasts of the prairie. Through an interpreter he shouted, "White man, hand over my daughter, or you will all die today." Tom knew the moment of truth had arrived. 1 man against 70, he had no chance of victory. But something still bothered him. Why hadn't the Indians attacked already? Why this attempt at negotiation? The Comanches were notorious for not bargaining with whites, especially not in family matters. Daughter of Sunset stepped beside him with tears in her eyes. Her hair fell on her shoulders in a loose braid. Fear and determination mixed in her brown eyes. "I haven't told you everything. Father didn't just come to take me back. He thinks you're the traitor who gave weapons to the Kiowas who then killed his brother." Tom now understood the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just about a runaway girl, but about revenge and misunderstanding too. He remembered that 2 years ago he had indeed met a white trader who was selling weapons to the Indians. Perhaps this was when they confused them and believed he was the arms dealer. He made a bold decision. He stepped out of the house unarmed, directly in front of Red Feather. The Comanches drew their bows, but at their chief's signal, they held their position. The air vibrated with tension. A single wrong move would have been enough to unleash a shower of arrows on the settler. Tom Jeffords began the biggest bluff of his life. He tried to communicate in broken Comanche, which he had learned over years as a trader. He explained that he wasn't the trader they were hunting for. As proof, he offered to show his trading ledger, which would prove he had never sold weapons to the Kiowas. The interpreter, a half-blood young man, translated his words. Red Feather listened with an expressionless face. The chief's face was like a rock, revealing none of his thoughts. The tension grew when Chief Red Feather entered Tom's house. The Comanches waited outside, ready to storm the house at their leader's first call. None of them believed the white man's words, but according to tribal tradition, the chief's decision was sacred, even if incomprehensible. Inside, Tom took out his ledger and showed the entries. Fortunately, the Comanche chief could read, having been taught by missionaries in his youth. While turning the pages, Red Feather's face showed no emotion. Meanwhile, Sunset's daughter stepped before her father and spoke to him at length in Comanche. She explained that Tom had saved her life and treated her respectfully. She spoke of tribal customs, duty, and the heart that doesn't love on command. Tears glistened in her eyes, but her voice remained firm. She was no longer the little girl who said yes to everything her father said. Red Feather remained silent while his daughter spoke. Then came an unexpected turn. The chief smiled and spoke in English with perfect pronunciation. "White man, it seems we both misunderstood the situation. You are not the one I'm hunting for, and my daughter is wiser than I thought." Tom stood stunned. The Comanche chief spoke perfect English as if he had used this language all his life. As the sun was setting, Red Feather and his warriors prepared to leave. But the surprising turn was yet to come. The chief didn't take his daughter with him. Instead, he entrusted her to Tom's protection until he returns in a month. By then, he said, he would find the real arms dealer and perhaps a new agreement between the tribes. Tom and Daughter of Sunset looked at each other in astonishment as the Comanche warriors departed. They didn't understand why Red Feather left his daughter with a stranger. Only later did an old Comanche warrior whisper the truth to Tom. According to the ancient prophecy, peace between the tribes would be brought by a marriage that unites the two worlds. And Red Feather recognized something that neither Tom nor his daughter had noticed. Fate had already begun its work on that rainy night when a Comanche girl knocked on a lonely settler's door.